Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the channel map for March of 2020. This is, of course, being recorded at the beginning of the month. A couple days late, but we don't really schedule ourselves here at Pornogo's YouTube channel. We just do things when we can. So, speaking of doing things when we can, let's talk about what we did and did not do in the month of February. Bit of a recap there, and then I'll go into the plans, both Brood War and video and miscellaneous, for the rest of this month of March. So, obviously, I spent most of February working on my full toilet submission. That has now been played and updated a little bit, and left to the whims of the voters in the Discord channel. So, that in and of itself is basically taken care of. And I thought it was a pretty good success. Reflecting upon the full toilet submission, I feel that I used it wisely to explore a lot of different AI ideas. Certainly, we don't have super solid concepts of how to set up long-distance bunker contains insofar as what we were trying to accomplish with some of the AI in that map. But I have a little bit more experience messing around with bunker contains and similar things, and I think that overall, the map ended up being quite satisfactory, even though it ended up feeling a little gimmicky with regards to how you actually won it, or how I won it in my playthrough anyway. So that's probably a little bit of a results may vary kind of disclaimer, but I think that it was a success as far as experimenting and finding a final sort of takeaway from it, insofar as you're trying to improve your technical wizardry, your understanding and your technique as it pertains to AI. So we do have fairly functional Zerg AI in that map, which is a significant step up from Stormborne and Hydra v-Zerg 01 back in December of 2019, and to a lesser extent, early February. Because Stormborne was another thing that I was working on in early February after Toddborne, and I wound up not being able to actually complete anything to do with the project because of a large number of bugs related to the A's plugin that we needed to get fixed. And so because that wrote off any chance for a short-term update, I decided I would just wait until after my full toilet submission was done, because the least I could work on my full toilet submission and see a result. And it also gave me an excuse to practice with Zerg AI and try to find out what exactly was wrong with my technique and with the plugin and with the game state and all that. So it wound up being useful, like I said. And Stormborne is now in a state where even if the A's plugin technical shit is still holding us back in some fashion, I can still at least get the AI updates done at some point in probably the second week of this month. And at that point, I'm just waiting for the technical stuff to be fixed before I ship an update. So more on that later on in this particular video. But that's sort of that. And when it comes to Hydra v-Zerg 01, I don't even think I touched it this month. Maybe I did work around a little bit. I think maybe I updated some of the map sizes or something, but that could have also been back in December. So it's hard for me to remember exactly what I did in the early stages of the month of February. All I know is I still had to redo the AI with all of the new techniques that we've developed, and using some of the mechanics and commands that were developed during the month of February by iquare that I can now exploit for my own benefit. So, nice guy, iquare, letting me do that. The other things that were on the agenda for Brood War in the month of February were paving the way for Inconsummate 2.0's public-facing development, which I did a little bit of here and there, mostly just going back to the old reference sheets and logs and basically documentation for the project, and the different ideas that I was passing around, and listening back to those, and just consulting that old material to try and get myself back into the headspace of developing that particular project. And that was basically all I had the expectation for. I knew I wasn't going to start public-facing development in terms of actual mod streams until March, and I just wanted to get acquainted with that project. The other stuff was related to working on assets for iquare. I converted a few graphics for him from Outlive at the beginning of the month, and then I sent him some conversions from Five Nations, which I started working on about halfway through February. Otherwise, I also did some Twilight terrain for his full toilet submission, but I didn't end up doing any other terrain for his Overlord project, which is mostly going to be centered in the desert tile set for now, like our first pass. If you cast your mind all the way back to the early days of Stormborne development, you may remember some development on the stream where I worked on the desert tile set tiles, even though that project doesn't include any desert tiles. That's because I was working for iquare in that particular context. So that was basically that, but like I said, I didn't end up contributing towards Overlord unless he ends up using the Twilight work in that context. So maybe he will, but I have a feeling he won't because I don't think there's any Protoss in there, and of course the Twilight tile set is a Protoss-centered tile set, so remains to be seen, perhaps. And of course, the final item on the list was the collaboration with Darkened Fantasies. I actually did resume development on that probably towards the tail end of the month, I would say, and that has been going fairly strong. I think we're up to 3 sessions, because 3, so that's exciting. And of course, there will be more of those that we collaborate together. That's not public facing, but I may consider throwing around a link to the playlist when it's done or something for those who are actually interested. That'll be for DF and myself to debate. However, when I reflected upon the overall construction of that map and what is actually in order for that map to be completed, there's a huge host of terrain changes that DF himself has to make, and that I will not be particularly helpful in contributing. And even though I'm responsible for the layout and for, I would say, most if not all of the AI, I'm sure he'll be doing some QA on it and stuff, because of course it started out as just his baby, his project, his special boy. But at some point, you have to realize what you've signed on to do and what the expectations are and stuff. So I'm not much more than terrain and I suppose like some tiles, like some blends or whatever I can make on my own, because that's what I do anyway. But I'm not really much more than terrain and AI, at least for now. Otherwise, I'm QA and testing and idea soundboard guy. Like, you just bounce your ideas off me kind of situation. So that's fine. I'm fine with that role. The concern that I have is, I did say in the February channel map that I expected a release date of Q1 2020. Well, given the amount of work that DF has signed himself up for just for the terrain, forget about the custom assets for all of the factions that are going to be at play here, or I guess the 2 factions, because 3 is just one too many. That is a lot of overhead and a lot of work for him to do, mostly by himself, because I'm not an art guy. So perhaps we can enlist the help of some of the other members. That Sipsion guy, I don't know how to say his name still, but he joined the server in the month of February, and he's been responsible for some terrain and some other art-focused projects in other RTS games. So he's getting back into Brood War. Perhaps he'll lend a hand in some development, some aspect. And who knows what else. Balethal was working with modeling recently as well, so who knows what will actually happen. But I presume DF will mostly be helming that work himself, and at that point, it's really just up to him in that sense, and I'll just do my damnedest to make sure that I get most of the work that I have to do done by the end of this month. Not because I'm trying to rush it. Of course, I am going to be taking my time and making sure that I'm doing the right stuff, just like any other project of mine, but I did want to commit to getting upholding my end of the bargain, and I think a good way to show that you're serious about that is to set a goal, not a deadline, but a goal. And that goal being that I have the layout finalized and at least some drafts of the AI done by the end of the month of March, the first quarter of 2020. I think that's a reasonable goal to have. So that ends up being sort of an update on that, if you will. And I think that was pretty much it as far as the Brood War plans were concerned. The video plans included Deus Ex and Peeker's Advantage. The former, we quit after 3 streams. The latter, we decided, or I didn't decide anything, I just still haven't heard back from them, so bye. But I did end up doing some Counter-Strike content recently, and that was, of course, the map analysis videos for the Map Core Exotic Places contest. And as I destroy my desk by accident, I should remind you that that is still going on. In fact, I have one more finalist to do that I'll be doing later on today. And I think other than that, it's just the runners-up and then maybe some other maps that didn't end up making any list, but I still want to run through. And then there's going to be some older maps as well. But after I'm done with the finalists and the runners-up, I will be slowing down production of those videos almost certainly to basically whenever I feel like them, but probably at least once a week. I think that's a fair goal to set for myself. It's just that obviously my time is very precious and I don't have a whole lot of it. So not a whole lot of justification that I can have to continue working on map analysis videos for Counter-Strike when it's not even my home game, and it's also something where I'm mostly doing it because there's a bunch of maps of varying qualities that were released for a contest that I would like to hit and do a sort of service for that community, because I don't see any content like that anywhere. So, well, I mean, I do see some content like it, but it's not as in-depth as mine. It's just not as good as mine, let's be honest. But no shade thrown. That's just how it is. You can't be good at everything you do, unless you're me. So let's move on to what we're actually going to be doing in the month of March. The Brood War plans, obviously Mapcraft Full Toilet was on that list because at the beginning of March, the first 3 days of the month were spent continuing to develop my submission and to actually play the submissions on the 3rd. That's already done, so now the only thing that I have to do regarding Full Toilet is declare a winner after the voting has ended. That has begun as of the recording of this video, so if you're not already in the Discord server and you want to cast your vote, you're going to have to join, fill out the locker room bouncer boys form, and give me a kiss, I guess, and that's how you get in. I'm pretty sure that's it. So then you can vote in the reactions, because the last time we did a straw poll, it got razorbacked. After that, obviously I've been working most recently on the VZerg 01 update for Hydra. That's Vanilla Zerg Mission 1, Among the Ruins, Aim on the Ruins. That map is basically having the AI, I won't say rewritten from scratch. A lot of the ideas are very similar, but I am swapping out so very much of the original content with new methodologies, new techniques, new blocks, new functions, basically, new code. And as a result, that means we are basically looking at a brand new AI, in effect. And especially the results are much that of a brand new AI. So it will be very nice to see what that ends up looking like in the final cut of it. But I think I can commit to getting all of the work done on that particular map by the end of this week. And hopefully I can ship a short-term update and then focus on Stormborne's short-term update in the following week before I move directly on to Inconsummate. Now, I should talk a little bit more about VZerg 01 and Stormborne. So the Hydra and Stormborne stuff, short-term is the key term here, and if I can't manage to actually ship a short-term update because of deficiencies in the plugin, as I discussed earlier when I was recapping February, I probably won't even bother working on Stormborne until those deficiencies are met. And after I conclude my updates of VZerg 01, I will, without even being able to test them, of course, I'm not going to be able to upload the new version, because it won't be functional if this reality happens. And so we basically have a branching path here where either it works great and I successfully update VZerg 01 and then I move on to Stormborne and update that successfully and get that out there too, or it doesn't work and I update VZerg 01 but not publicly. I just update my local copy. I make a backup, as I am trying to get into the habit of doing, and then I wait for the stuff to be fixed. And otherwise, I just move directly on to Inconsummate, skipping Stormborne, because there's not really much of a point in investing about a week's worth of development into something that you don't have no guarantee will ever work, and you don't even know when the work will change. So I have to try with VZerg 01 and get to the point where most of the work is done anyway, so I may as well finish it in order to figure out whether or not it works at all. And so that's our first exploration element of this month. And then we have a contingency. If it doesn't work, we just skip Stormborne's development and we go straight into Inconsummate, and that's the plan. Inconsummate itself is an exciting project for me to work on publicly. I've never done that before, so for me, it's one of those things that I really want to just take a look at and just parse out how exactly I should be working on content that I want to keep spoiler-free. I don't want to spoil the content of these projects that I have in mind that are in the sort of legacy or the history, the ancestry of Inconsummate. So that sort of project line, the lineage, rather, is the term I was looking for. I don't want to spoil the lineage of Inconsummate by working on all of those projects and thus sharing too much information, but I do think that the best way for me to guarantee progress on anything is to stream development of it, even if it ends up being publicly, or regardless of whether or not it's publicly streamed, rather. So in this case, it makes sense for Inconsummate's rework to receive a public stream, because most people have already heard of Inconsummate, even if they haven't played it themselves or looked it up. They at least know that I'm the author of it, the original version, and that I've wanted to remake it for a while. And so here is an opportunity to do something that's already been in the public consciousness of my community, so that I can look at that and say, hey, this is Inconsummate, this is a rework of that campaign that really catapulted me to stardom all those years ago back in 2017. And now I can just say that I'm working on it, and if I feel like I gave too much away during the development of the rework of Inconsummate, then maybe I just skip streams for the sequels like Bloodfaust or other such projects like my comedic ones that are also slated to be single players. So when it comes to projects that I actually give a shit about the story of, unlike, for example, Hydra or the Nemesis maps where the story is not really, it's more like flavor or it's the atmosphere, the staging of the gameplay that you're experiencing is very much, those are very much gameplay focused projects, whereas obviously Inconsummate and etc. will all be gameplay focused, but not solely gameplay focused. There is also going to be focus on the story and the characters and so on. And so I don't want to spoil all the twists, and I don't want to spoil all the turns, and I don't want to just let anything sort of sap at the worth of or the value of the end user's experience if they do choose to tune in. But at the end of the day, they are choosing to tune in. And so I will just continue down that road for now, and I will do a sort of, I'm sure, a public update, but also a couple of introspections along the way. How do I feel about how this is going, or how do I feel about it, how it went at the end of it? You know, do I feel like people had too much of a peek behind the curtain? Is there ways that I can mitigate that without completely axing any public-facing development of future single-player content? You know, these are questions I'm going to be asking myself throughout and especially after the development of Inconsummate's 2.0 version. So stay tuned for that, and that will probably be certainly during the 3rd and 4th weeks of this month after Stormborne's perspective update ships. But obviously I could be starting it sooner if Hydra's Visorgo 1 experiment ends poorly, as I was just discussing. Otherwise, I'm just going to return to work on iquare's assets, and like I said, I also want to get work done on the collaboration that I'm doing with Darkened Fantasies. So those two collaborators of mine are going to continue to receive my time and effort as I foretold you in the month of February. So that's just something that you can expect, even though I guess the iquare's assets I'll be working on stream probably, but the DF stuff I will not be. So you'll have to just bide your time until you can get your hands on that bad boy. For video content, like I mentioned earlier, I do want to continue the CSGO map analysis videos. And one of the things that was kind of puzzling when I thought about it is I don't actually do that many Brood War map analysis videos. You know, you're lucky if I take a look at your map in the middle of a mod stream, basically. I very rarely make public-facing standalone video recorded content where I go through somebody's map, and I used to do this as a private thing where I would open your map in the editor and I would take a look at it, and I would, maybe I would boot it up and play through it first and then open it up in the editor afterwards and give you some feedback based on that. I used to do this for people like Heltrix and Veek and Dark Metzen and all those other people. And I don't mind doing that. I did that for Alexander's Warcraft 3 content back in the day as well. I don't mind doing that even now, even though it is, again, like, presumably it's supposed to be like private for those individuals, but I also don't mind making that public facing either. So at some point, I'm sure there will be some time where I end up cracking maps like that open and making public facing content about that if the authors of that content are interested. It's just that with the CSGO stuff, they're releasing it publicly for everybody else to see. So I don't really have to imagine, is it okay for me to use this? So I'll just have to get the okay from the other people. Presumably they will also be releasing their content publicly anyway to be consumed by everybody. And so there is that. So, speaking of releasing content to be consumed by anybody, there is, of course, the matter of the 2018 and 2019 compilation that I will be trying to resume work on during this month. This is admittedly one of the lowest priority things on this list, if not the lowest priority thing. And, of course, the other video edited related thing that I was going to be doing in theory this month, but will most likely be off in April, is the Half-Life video essay, or video essays, depending on how many I end up doing. I still would love to be able to write some stuff for that or plan some stuff out for that in this month, but I very highly doubt that I'll be able to actually start the video editing process in this month, just because I have so many other things on my list. And now as for Let's Plays, I do want to get Battle Realms at least started, if not finished, this month. That's been on the list for a very long time, and it is an RTS, so I'm told. So I think I have it, but if I don't, I'll get it. And at some point, I will be streaming that. Probably next week, actually. And then otherwise, maybe I'll just fuck around with some more Brood War custom campaigns. I still have to review the Alliance, so that'll be later on today, hopefully. And otherwise, it'll just be throughout this week. I'll eventually put that up there and also timestamp all the VODs for that disaster. And otherwise, you'll just have to wait and see what I end up doing next for Let's Plays after Battle Realms or in addition to Battle Realms, depending on how crazy I feel like getting. So there is that. some miscellaneous things to discuss, also plans for this particular month. I do want to do some more maintenance and updates on the Wikidot. I've already been working on like the Hydra new game state Wikidot article, but I mostly mean the public-facing utilities and stuff like the guides, command guides, syntax sheets, stuff like AI starter pack, and all that other stuff. I think it would be nice to continue to the development of the modding and AI starter guides in particular, just because there are people out there who would benefit from having those resources be more fully fleshed out. And I think I would be remiss to just completely ignore them, more or less. So hopefully that's something that I can also find time for. While it is admittedly higher priority than working on my meme compilation, it's probably not that far up above it in terms of priority. Because there's, again, only so much time in the day, but it is something that I do see value in. Otherwise, I did promise that I'd be working with programming and committing to self-educating myself, self-education on the topic of programming. And so at some point I will be, very soon I think, I will be, looking up some videos and stuff. If you have any recommendations, feel free to let me know. People DM me some stuff from time to time, and I think it would be great to be able to experience that. So that's that, I guess. But I mean, at the end of the day, I do think that the programming stuff is just going to come naturally with me learning Unreal. I may end up dabbling in that as well, but I think more likely it's probably going to be something that I dabble with in April. Because again, I have so much on my plate this month alone. So that has been the channel map, and that is going to be it. Obviously, in the far future, I will be working on an FPS in Unreal, as discussed on one of the podcasts a while ago. I don't think I mentioned that in the last channel map, because I don't think I had talked about it then, but maybe I had. Maybe I did. Who knows? And otherwise, of course, I will still be trying to get some more Big Boys Table content and dad cause and buy designs and stuff like that this month as well. But no ETA, no promises on any of that stuff. It really just depends on my availability. And then, of course, for the podcast, it depends on the shared availability of myself and Misc. So when that overlaps, we will give you some content. And when it does not, you will not get any. And that is that. So hope you have enjoyed this channel update and hope you have felt updated. You have been updated indeed. And now I'm going to add you to my mod with Firegraft. Bye.